One thing was clear, though, in the Ibero-American Summit. Policies on adolescents and youth in the Latin American region, and I want to refer to it, are beginning to take shape, and progress has been made. One could not, not acknowledge that progress has been made, for example, in secondary education or in access to technology. But most policies are inspired by a negative view of adolescents that criminalizes them, and particularly male, even more so if they are poor and socially excluded. There is a strong tendency in the region now towards a neoconservative view of civil security, one would say in English, seguridad ciudadana, we say in Spanish, evidenced by an increase in the number of countries that are reducing the age of criminal responsibility and increasing the harshness of judicial sentences to juveniles whenever preventive or protection systems fail. Thus, the idea that adolescents are a problem is further reaffirmed. Whether we are focusing on adolescent girls or on boys, two principles need to provide the foundation for policymaking. The first, an explicit and positive recognition that adolescents need to be perceived, valued, and respected as subjects of rights, able to contribute to society's development and to their own. The second principle, adolescents know their needs and their priorities and can participate actively in decisions and policies that affect them. In fact, recently the committee had the opportunity to review Bangladesh's third and fourth periodic reports. And in doing so, we came across an alternative report. You know, the committee receives the state report, but it also receives alternative reports from NGOs and from UNICEF and from other international organizations. One alternative report was by the Disadvantaged Adolescents Working NGOs Forum, called DAWN, supported by ActionAid. As always, these reports are very rich, especially if they capture real-life situations and discussions among or testimonies from adolescents themselves. What caught our eye was a chapter called Identity Crises of Adolescent Population, and it came under the item of the definition of the child. Definition of the child in convention terms, in the Convention of the Rights of the Child terms, means age. In essence, Bangladeshi adolescents pointed out to the mismatch of expectations of themselves and others and their actual capacities and resources. The recommendations from the adolescents to the government amount to, in my view, an excellent policy statement, and I want to quote it. 2 points. Define the population group of adolescents in national policies and laws and harmonize one with the other. So define the population group of adolescents from a public policy point of view. And secondly, take necessary measures to give an identity to adolescents as a distinct population group, provide them with necessary support, and facilitate their participation in relevant stages of decision-making and implementation of different interventions that promote their potential so that they are able to contribute to the national development process, unquote. Coming back to the point about age, from a child rights perspective, adolescents therefore are children. It was through the examination of state parties' reports regarding the application of the convention, the actual application of the convention in legal, policy, institutional, and program terms, and through the dialogues with NGOs and UNICEF and others over the years that the Committee on the Rights of the Child started articulating the need to have a specialized focus on adolescents as a later stage in childhood. Thus arose General Comment number 4 of 2003 on the health and development of adolescents. That's how the committee called it, the health and development of adolescents, to explain that, quote, adolescents up to 18 years are subjects of all rights enshrined in the CRC, have a right to special protection and can progressively exercise their rights according to their evolving capacities. So note that the committee, in explaining the articles of the convention, goes into actual recognition of adolescence. Although, and it says up to 18, although it doesn't establish a minimum age, because obviously, it depends very much on the countries and the cultures and the regions. By way of an explanation, let me just say that a general comment from the committee is a distillation of pronouncements that the committee has made over the years to different state party reports, countries' reports, in the form, we do it in the form of conclusions and recommendations to each state party. But then from time to time, the committee begins to understand that there are issues that need an explanation, that need interpretation, that, for which enough jurisprudence has been put together, and so we produce what is called a general comment. In this case, it was general comment number 4. And a day of general debate, which is what I alluded to earlier on, may be the prelude to such a general comment. To date, the committee has issued 12 general comments only in its almost 20 years of existence. On this particular general comment number 4, the emphasis was on health and development of all adolescents, male and female, trying to identify the rights that will guarantee the highest level of health, a balanced development, and adequate preparation for adulthood. In closer examination, there is very little, really, if you start reading it, and I did very carefully, there is very little that is really specific to adolescence, I must say, and recognize, and maybe my colleagues will kill me when they see what I've written. Different from younger children. If you start looking and you replace the word adolescent for the word children, it doesn't really make much of a, we're talking 2003. And this is, of course, my personal view. I think that the merit of the general comment number 4 consists in highlighting that when applying a child rights approach to adolescence, there are sensitivities, culture, levels of information, and ability to express thoughts and opinions that need to be taken into consideration when developing laws and policies and programs, if adolescents are to become subjects of rights or to become visible in public policy. When it comes to adolescent girls, the general comment does not go beyond what had already been established in its day of general discussion, debate in 1995, which had very forcefully stated that girls are simply human beings who should be seen as individuals and not just as daughters, sisters, wives, or mothers, and who should fully enjoy the fundamental rights inherent to their human dignity.